The Overwhelmed Brain is a proud member of the Healing Broadcast Network. Are you annoyed by affirmations? When your bank calls you up to let you know you're in overdraft once again, but to think positively, do you hang up feeling the joy and appreciation of 1,000 lottery winners? Yeah, me too. If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then get ready to start creating the life you've always wanted now. Hello, this is Paul Coliani, host of The Overwhelmed Brain, the personal growth show for the critical thinker. On every episode, we'll talk about practical, down-to-earth steps to help you improve your mood and keep you sane in this powerful journey we call life. I want to help you bridge the gap between your emotions and reason, causing you to discover why you do the things you do and what you can do to reach higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress and overwhelm. If you're here to learn more common sense tips for improving your life, you're in the wrong place. This is the direct path to uncommon sense, and that's why it's going to help you learn, heal, grow, and evolve. My ultimate goal is to help you become empowered so that you can create the life you want. Today's quote is by Gretchen Rubin, and it's this: "One of the best ways to make yourself happy in the present is to recall happy times from the past. Photos are a great memory prompt, and because we tend to take photos of happy occasions, they weight our memories to the good." The reason I like this quote and the reason I used it is because most, if not all, of our emotional triggers are from memories. And I'm talking about both positive and negative emotional triggers. An emotional trigger is any type of emotional recollection or reaction that you have to a thought or something like a situation that happens, something that someone says, something that you're doing that reminds you of a time and a place that you either enjoyed or you didn't. For the most part, when I talk about emotional triggers, I talk about the ones that don't make us feel very good. And I want to talk about this quote in the sense of something that I did to help me alleviate some of the negative emotional triggers in my life. I once had a box of, well, I still have a box of pictures, but the box used to be full, probably over 600 pictures. That may not seem like a lot to you, but to me, 600 pictures is a lot to lug around most of my life. But what I do with these pictures every now and then is take them out and look at them. And many of them make me feel good. And some don't. Some make me feel bad. And it's not just like, oh, that person's dead, so I feel bad, because I still have good memories with people that have passed on. But sometimes I have pictures that honestly make me feel bad. Maybe it's somebody I didn't have a good relationship with, or maybe it was a time and place in my life that I didn't feel very good about. So I remember the last time I did this. It was about 10 years ago or so. What I did was sit down with all these pictures, and as I pulled them out, I decided that the ones that almost always make me feel bad, I was going to throw away. And that was hard to do, because if you're like me, you're attached to many personal things like this. You're attached to these because you have an emotional connection with some things in your life, especially pictures. Pictures capture a moment in time that also captures the memory and the attached emotion. So when you look through pictures or even old video, but pictures tend to do a lot more because it keeps the door open for more imagination, for more mental recollection. It's more of a subconscious process to look at pictures because nothing's moving. It's a moment in time. It's that still frame of something that happened where your mind fills in all the gaps. As opposed to video, where everything's happening and your mind is engaged, not so much filling in the gaps because you see every second of what happened in the video. You may still have emotions connected to that video, and they could be good or bad. But when we're talking about pictures, it's a lot easier to be emotionally triggered by a picture, typically. Well, I shouldn't say it's easier, but it tends to happen more often with pictures. So what I did one day was, like I said, sit down with all these pictures, and I started throwing away the ones that I knew made me feel bad over and over again. Now, what made me do that was I don't like feeling bad. I don't like feeling any negative feelings when I'm going through memories. I'll have a happy memory and then another happy memory and then another one, and then that one makes me feel bad. That one picture. And in the past, I would pull it out and I would think, oh, there's that picture again. Ugh. But I would keep it. You might do this too. You probably keep things that make you feel bad. Why? Why would you keep something that makes you feel bad? I know it's a piece of history maybe, or it's someone that you knew, or it's a time in your life that you want to remember for some reason. I can understand that if you wanted to keep a picture that made you feel bad and that motivated you to change your ways, for the good, that would be positive. That's something that's saying, wow, that was me when I was totally broke and hungry or whatever, and I will never be in that place again. And that's a good reminder. That's a good motivator. But do you have pictures that when you look at them, you feel bad and then it doesn't motivate you to do anything? It just gets you depressed? My suggestion, if you're willing to do this, is to eliminate those pictures. Get rid of them. Don't keep things that make you feel bad. I think one of the greatest things you can do in life is surround yourself with things that make you feel good and people that make you feel good. When you can do this, you can lead a positive, happier, more fulfilling life. It doesn't mean you're not going to have problems or challenges or any negativity that comes into your life, but when the challenges do come, you have a positive, reinforcing support system around you. That's hard to do when you keep negative things in your life. Some people say that material items have a negative or a positive energy about them. I don't believe that so much. It could be true, but I do believe that we definitely attribute or project a negative or a positive energy or feeling onto things, into things. If we feel bad about something in our life, if it's possible, why not remove it from our life or move away from that in our life? When I lived in San Diego, everywhere I drive, I just felt like I was in the desert. And, it was near the ocean and I could go to the ocean and feel better there. But 98% of the time when I wasn't near the ocean, I felt like I was in the desert. And I didn't like that feeling. So I decided to move. I wanted to go someplace that wasn't dry. So I moved to Portland, Oregon. Now there, I started feeling pretty good again. But then soon the rain and the cold got to me. And after 3 years, I had to leave that place too. I definitely am a believer that the environment plays a part in your satisfaction in life. So I've moved around a lot looking for that perfect environment. There is no such thing, of course, but sometimes there are environments that make you feel better than other environments. So when I moved from Portland, Oregon, I went to New Hampshire. And for some reason, that felt good. It felt really good to be in New Hampshire. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the nature. I didn't even mind the snow. It just felt good there. And it's hard to explain. I was born in New England, so it probably has something to do with it. Growing up around trees and lakes and nature, it was just gorgeous. But soon, being the wanderer that I am, I traveled again and I moved to Georgia. And as of this show, I am living in Georgia, and it probably will not be my final destination. I enjoy the humidity, but I can also get that elsewhere But while I'm here, I'm going to enjoy it while I can. And it doesn't make me feel bad driving around here, being outside. The weather is nice most of the time, and I feel positive. So where am I going with all this? It's important for you to remember that what you bring into your life is what will lead to how you feel. In other words, well, not only what you bring in, but what you have. What you have in your life leads to how you feel. So think of the combination of things in your life and how you feel overall about having those things in your life. I know people that collect knickknacks like crazy. They have them all over the walls, in their drawers, filling up every single room of their house. And they love it. They enjoy having them. Every single little item gives them a good feeling. And, as long as it doesn't get overcrowded and it doesn't become a hoarding scenario, I think that's healthy. I think it's okay to have things that make you feel good. However, on the flip side of that, how healthy is it to not have good relationships? Some of us will collect things in our life because we don't have a good relationship or good relationships with friends, family, lovers, whatever it is. When you don't have good human connection that makes you feel good, even just a single friend that you talk to every now and then, you tend to gravitate towards other things that make you feel good, that may not have the connection that a human person has. You might gravitate towards animals. You might gravitate towards material items and start collecting those things. And there's a multitude of reasons why we don't have human connection in our lives, but I do believe it's an important factor in satisfaction. Now, with all that said, you can take everything I said with a grain of salt. If you have both good and bad in your life and you like that mixture, and it drives you, it motivates you to feel better and be a better person, then I say stick with it. Keep going. But if you think of the combination of things that are in your life, and there's more bad than good, and I just mean on how it makes you feel. If you feel bad more of the time because of the stuff in your life, maybe it's time to start pulling the weeds. You know what I mean by that, right? Move or remove anything in your life that makes you feel bad. Now, I know what you're saying. I can't do that. I can't quit my job. I can't leave this person. I can't change some of the things that make me feel bad. But you can change little things. You can remove little things. Even a messy closet that makes you feel bad every time you see it because it's messy, you can spend some time and pull the weeds. If it's that one room you've been wanting to paint, pull the weeds and paint it. If your car has had that service engine light on and it bothers you every time you see it, pull the weeds, get it fixed. And I know some of this is going to cost money. That's why I'm giving you all these ideas. Just think of the things that make you feel bad and do a process of elimination so that what will happen is as you do this, you'll start feeling better and better. It's kind of like the financial guy, Dave Ramsey. He talks about the debt snowball. You take all your bills, usually credit card bills, all your credit card bills, and you start with the lowest one first, the one that has the lowest balance, and you pay it off. Because once you pay that one balance off, once you pay that one bill off, you get this little elation inside, this little celebration that motivates you to pay off the next highest one. And then through the snowball effect, as the snowball rolls down the hill and gets bigger and bigger, so does your momentum. Your momentum gets bigger and stronger as you start eliminating the negativity in your life. So like I said, I know you can't get rid of everything and you can't afford to get rid of some things or fix some things, but you can start with one thing. For me, it was a box of pictures. I took out that box of pictures, removed the ones that made me feel bad, And now I have a box of pictures that I know that every time I look at them, I'll feel good. And that's what I want for you too. Let's go to our next segment called Ask Paul. All right, if you've been listening for the last few weeks, we've been talking to Asha, who is an independent associate for LegalShield. She's someone who answers all your questions regarding the service that helps you get legal representation whenever you need it for a low monthly rate. For this episode, she wanted to talk about the quality control measures that LegalShield puts in place to make sure that the firms that they work with give you the best possible service. Quite honestly, I didn't want to talk about quality control. I thought it might be a bit boring or not really of value to you, but her answer proved me wrong. Instead of putting this on the editing room floor, I decided to play her response for this segment. Tell me what you think, Asha.
Quality control is not boring because the whole point is you're going out, you have something that's come up against you, and you're trying to choose an attorney. You've never done this before. You don't know anybody. All you have is Joe Schmo's reference, which is almost useless because, opinions are a dime a dozen. You go out, I've hired attorneys based on other people's recommendations because they really like that person or they used this person and it was good. I did not have good luck with those people. There was no quality control. I was taking a gamble with my life because this was about the custody of my child and my whole future with my divorce because I lost my job 30 days after I hired my first divorce attorney. And who was saying, no alimony, I wish more women would do it this way. And if you're concerned about you losing your job, perhaps you should just not get divorced. I was angry, and I did not know what to do. So what LegalShield has done for me is it gave me, unbeknownst to me at the time, but I understand it and appreciate it now, it gave me a law firm that they had vetted, that they know has a culpability to them. Because a large amount of their business, several $1 million a year, is from these prepaid plans. Like I pay $20 a month into this one Georgia firm that they've selected as the primary provider. Then they care about that relationship because you're no longer the low man on the totem pole with one little case that they don't want to deal with and they're just running the clock to get billable hours. It's in their best interest to answer your questions as quickly and as properly and appropriately and beneficially to you as possible. And then if you have to hire someone, you get discounts and you're going to get good service because they don't want to lose that account. It's a huge part of their business. And what I've gotten is the best attorneys I've ever had.
All right, Asha, thank you so much for that passionate breakdown on quality control for LegalShield. How can people reach you if they want to know more?
They can call me at 678-355-8777 or go to getoutofthemess.com or my email is Asha, ASHA, at getoutofthemess.com.
Thank you, Asha. We will talk to you again next week. We are on to our next segment called Ask Paul. This is where I read a listener email on the air and do my best to answer and help them through the challenge. Now, normally I focus on one main email and surround or create the entire segment on that main email. But this time I have two because I think I can fit them both into this one segment. So let's start with the first one. Here it is. Hi, Paul. I was wondering, with all the information you put out into the world, how do you remember it? How do you retain it in your mind? I listen to an episode several times and then I go on to the next one and I feel that I already forgot the last one and I have to go back and listen again. I want to be ready when someone disrespects me at work, for example. There are a lot of unhappy people there and they like to put me and others down a lot. I have a particular issue that bothers me a lot, and it's the way someone looks at me as if they're looking down at me. They don't say anything, they just stare. It appears that they're trying to intimidate me. They look so mean. I don't know how to respond to someone like that. I feel that this person is the bully of the department, and everyone abides to her except me, and she's not even my boss. Maybe you could do a show about work issues and the coworkers that you work with, all different ages, young and old. Coworkers that tell us what to do or not to do, or they're always insulting us, or whatever. I'd love to know how to handle them. I don't want to run to the boss about petty issues every time something happens, so perhaps you could create a show on it. What do you think? Thanks, Paul. Jill, not her real name. Hello, Jill. Thanks for that idea. I think it's a great idea, actually, creating an episode on coworkers and who we work with and the particular types of situations that we get in with coworkers. I remember in the 90s, I worked as an assistant manager for this company, and I had a staff of about 24 people under me, and they worked all 3 shifts. It was a 24-hour operation. So when I was there, I was on call, and when I was gone, I was on call. No matter what, I was always on call. So everything that happened, I heard about, or everything that needed my attention. And a lot of issues that might be considered petty came across my pager. Well, back then I had a pager. And so I'd get paged at night. I'd get called during the day. I'd get all kinds of calls and notices that something was going on. Typically, if it wasn't technical in nature, it was between an employee and a client or between employees. And I don't know, I'd say about 30% of the time, one employee had a problem with another employee. So I think your idea of creating an episode on coworkers and how to get along with people and how to respond to people, what to do, what to say, is a good one. So I will definitely consider that. So thank you so much for that idea. So let me address the couple questions that you have here. The first question is, how do you retain so much information? All that information you put out into the world, how do you remember it? How do you retain it in your mind? How do you keep it there for immediate access anytime you need it? Well, here's the truth. I can't. I can't remember it all, and I don't recall it exactly when I need it. I know this stuff because I've experienced or lived through most of it. Everything I talk about, I have personal experience in. If I talk about the ways I've dealt with coworkers, it's because I actually did the process of doing that. I think what happens a lot of times is that we tend to avoid dealing with situations. We tend to avoid confrontation. We want to play nice in the sandbox. We want to be kind to everyone, or at least not cause trouble. But I never minded, it's going to sound weird, causing trouble. I never minded finding out what would happen if I did confront, if I did say what was really on my mind. Yes, this comes down to a personal boundaries issue. When I felt like my personal boundaries were being crossed, I said what was on my mind and found out what happened. So the secret to retaining a lot of this information, I don't recall it all off the top of my head all the time, but because I've experienced it, that's the secret. It's the experiential process of learning. It's learning through activity. It's doing the things that you want to learn instead of just listening to or reading about the things that you want to learn and recall. That is the most important part of learning, at least for me. We all learn a little bit differently, but I have to learn by experience. I have to try things on. I have to try things out. So the best way for me to remember things is to do them and find out if it works. Well, sometimes you don't want to test it out in real life events. Sometimes you don't want to say that thing that you really want to say to your boss. So what happens for me is when I want to test out something that I don't necessarily want to do in person for real, I'll do it in my head. And I'll actually go through the experience in my head to figure out what would happen. Now, I did this when I created the show a while back on infidelity. I don't believe I've ever been cheated on, and I know that I've never cheated on anyone. So I wanted to experience what it was like to both be the cheater and the victim of that cheating. So that's what I did. I actually closed my eyes and experienced what it was like to know that my partner was cheating on me. It was not pleasant. But I tell you what, it gave me answers. It gave me wisdom to go through that process. I shouldn't say wisdom, but I did feel like I knew more than I did when I was going into it. I feel like I did have a better idea of what the victim of infidelity would go through. And that's when I came up with the term emotional murder. And that gave me an overall philosophy of what happens when you get cheated on. So my process of retaining this stuff is trying it on, going through the motions, imagining it, or even trying it out in real life and seeing what happens. I do test these things. Everything I talk about is something I've either tested in my mind or in real life. So my advice, if I was going to give it regarding memory retention, is do as much as you can to create an experiential process. Or, in other words, do the thing that you want to remember. If you want to remember how to respond to someone, respond to them and find out what happens. And if you can't do it in real life because you're just not at that level yet, you're not sure what's going to happen, and you might have some fear that you'll get fired, or at home someone might leave you in the relationship or your family, then it's going to be harder. You'll have to do it in your mind, but go through the motions in your mind. And when you do that, you're going to have a much better level of retention. That's what works for me. Now, what else works for me? Of course, I talk about this stuff all the time. I'm here once a week telling you and talking and recalling it. Not only do I think about this stuff during the week, but now I get on the air and I actually have to articulate it in a way that teaches others. Now, that's a really good way to learn. When you know something well enough that you can teach it to others, you learn through teaching. You have to. When I do coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching sessions, I actually learn some new things for myself while I'm coaching someone else, because I hear myself talking to them, saying something about, for example, their relationship. And I'll go, wow, where did that come from? That's good advice. I got to do that in my own relationship. I don't know where this stuff comes from. It's just, we all have access to everything that we've ever learned in life. We just can't recall it all the time. But what I found out is that when I'm put on the spot and I'm behind the microphone and I have to speak, I quite literally access my unconscious thoughts. I can't do this consciously. There's no way you can do most things where you have to recall a lot of details and a lot of information without accessing your long-term unconscious mind. So that's another way to do it, is put yourself in a position where you are teaching, or you have no choice but to present to someone, whether it's on stage or in a group or wherever. When you are on the spot, you'll find out that you have many more resources than you believed you had. So the idea of recalling it at the time or knowing what to say or what to do at the time will be a lot easier when you're in that situation, because you'll be on the spot. A coworker will say something and you'll be on the spot. Now you have an opportunity to test it out. I know you have to have some courage to do this, and you might have to deal with some consequences. But honestly, that's how I do things. I say what I have to say and deal with the consequences just to find out what happens. Now, there is an overall philosophy that I have. And when you adhere to a philosophy, a set of beliefs, a set of ideas or principles, then coming up with solutions or how you should respond or react is a lot easier. And here's what I do. When I'm in a situation where, let's just say I was with a coworker, and that coworker was being a jerk or doing something that I didn't like and he was being offensive or she was being offensive, I think, okay, what's my philosophy? My philosophy is, if my personal boundaries are crossed, I will honor them. What does that mean? If they're saying something that disrespects me, which is one of my personal boundaries or one of my values, I will speak up on it. Period. I follow that philosophy. And every time I honor that personal boundary. And I told the story on the show before where I used to work with this guy and he decided to treat me badly for no reason at all. I was there to help him and he decided to treat me badly. And I said, you need to relax. I said, you need to calm down. I'm here to help you. So do me a favor and treat me with a little more respect. And he immediately changed his attitude and treated me nice. And in fact, from that point on, he treated me nicer than he treated anyone else. Now, it could have been a little intimidation factor for sure, but it didn't matter because now I am getting the respect that I deserve. My philosophy is that I deserve respect. That should be your philosophy too. You deserve respect. You have dignity and you deserve to keep it. You have integrity and you deserve to keep it. And if that means standing up for yourself, being of integrity and saying, your attitude really offends me, then you might want to do that. I'm not saying you should do that because you do have to deal with the consequences afterward. But I also have a philosophy for that too. When it comes to consequences, I will stand up and respect myself no matter what the consequences. Now that's a tough position for some people to be in, but I have done it for many years now. I will stand up and respect myself when I'm being disrespected, no matter what the consequences. I remember the first time I did that, I thought I was going to get fired. Turns out that that's exactly what they wanted me to do because they respected me more than ever after that point. This is my two bosses that I worked for. Those two bosses respected me and said, wow, that's the kind of attitude we need around here. And I was shocked because I was always afraid to show my attitude. I was always afraid to stand up for myself and be of integrity. But they loved it. They said, that's what we need. And they started including me on business meetings. And I just moved up in the company just because I chose to stand up for myself and be the person I felt inside. That's who you need to be, the person you feel inside. Bring it out into the world. You do have to watch out because sometimes the anger will come out, so you have to be careful. You have to throttle that and make sure it doesn't come out and be harmful or destructive. But, you just approach situations with calm assertiveness. So when your coworker looks at you funny, well, the first thing you have to remember is that people carry around their own baggage. They carry it around on their face through their expressions. They carry it around through their gestures, through the things that they say. People carry around their own emotional baggage. So you can't take it personally. You can't take what they're doing or saying personally because people are walking around with all these problems in their head. And sometimes they take those problems out on others. Now, sure, it feels nice to know that maybe you can put someone in their place, but sometimes you're better off to turn on some compassion and see them coming from a place of pain. Now, think about that. If you saw someone looking at you funny and they were sneering at you or mean, think about them doing that from a place of pain, as if you represented someone that hurt them in their past. Because that's really what it's all about. When people talk down to us or they're mean to us, most of the time it represents someone from their past. And what they've learned to do is generalize that anyone can be that person. Anyone can represent that person that hurt them in their past. So when you get that mean look, first thing you need to do is switch on your compassion and go, wow, they're coming from a place of hurt. And how would you respond then? And notice if your response also from a place of compassion, changes their mental state, changes their attitude. And if it does, great. You've touched on something that will help them connect to a better place. And if they don't change, and they're just as mean or they're being outwardly aggressive towards you, then you stand up for yourself, saying, I respect myself too much for you to disrespect me. That's a good way to word it. Now, if someone's giving you that mean look, that's not really aggressive. Again, that's coming from a place of pain. But if they do things that are disrespectful or violating some other personal boundaries that you have, it's okay to say something like, I respect myself too much for you to disrespect me. Period. That's it. And they might go, I wasn't disrespecting you. I was talking about something else. They'll say something. Or they'll go, well, you're incompetent, and they'll make you feel bad. They'll say things that hurt you. That's just a bully behavior, a coping mechanism that they learned how to do a long time ago. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, Jill. Thank you for the idea on creating a show on working with your coworkers and how to get along and things like that. It's a great idea. And I hope you get something from this reply, and I appreciate your letter. Here's another quick letter that I received, which is a response to one of my episodes where I read his original email. And this is what he said. Thank you, Paul. I downloaded that episode on Monday, and to my surprise, you were reading my email. That whole podcast typifies my life. Listening to your story is like seeing my own life. My ex, when they left, called me the boy who never grew up. He's referring to the episode where I talk about embracing your masculinity. Then he goes on, but unfortunately, she preferred it that way, I guess him being a boy, as it became a very codependent relationship for many years until I had had enough. I was codependent. Being a helper/rescuer has made my life hell and where I am today. The work I'm doing on myself is at times hard to face. And it's uncomfortable to read or hear advice and then implement the change. But change I can. And I have learned that you can't change anyone else. And man, have I tried to change my partners. Me too. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you. You took the time to respond to my email on a podcast, not only helping me with the questions I asked, but also giving advice to others so that someone like myself can gain some answers from your insight in our journey in this life. Thank you very much, Bill. Not his real name. Well, Bill, thank you so much for writing that. And I see where you're at. That's a hard place to be when you're in a situation where you're acting like the child, like I was for many years in my relationships, and the person you're with wanted it that way. They actually gained something from it, creating the codependency. Now, you'll have to listen to the whole episode on embracing your masculinity in order to understand some of the stuff I'm talking about now. But for the most part, I did talk about when I was in a relationship and I acted like a little boy. In fact, my wife, when I was married, used those very words. She said, "You're acting like a little boy." She said, "I want a man." And that hit hard. That was like, wow, I am? Of course I was, because everything I did sounded like it was coming from a child. I was very passive and permissive. I was in a place where I would go, is it all right if I do this? I would even use that tone of voice. Is it okay if I do this? And it would bother the heck out of her. It twisted her the wrong way because she wanted to be a woman. She wanted to be feminine. And how can a woman be feminine if she's married to a little boy? Now, if you're in this place, listen to that episode. Find any episode that I've created. Go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com, use the search field, and type in masculinity. Whether you're a man or a woman doesn't matter, because we both have masculine and feminine energies within us. And usually in a relationship, one of us takes on more of a masculine role and the other one takes on more of a feminine role. It just works out. It balances things out. And sometimes the man takes on the feminine role and sometimes the woman takes on the masculine role. And this can work if you both want to be that way. Typically, one person doesn't want to be that way and the other person is fine being the way they are. And that's where conflict exists. And this works in gay relationships too. One of you is usually more masculine, one of you is more feminine, and it just works out. It balances out. The problem comes when one of you wants to embrace, say, their femininity. If you really want to embrace your femininity in a relationship and you married or you're with a little boy or a very feminine person, you're not going to be able to do it because you have two of the same aspects fighting for that role. You're vying for that position. And one of you is going to win and the other one is not. So what needs to happen? One of you needs to embrace one role and the other one needs to embrace the other role. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. Don't hold me to, well, why can't we both be masculine or why can't we both be feminine? It is possible. As long as you're comfortable in your own skin and you're comfortable with each other, it is absolutely possible. From my experience in many, almost every case, I've seen that the masculine works with the feminine in a balanced way. It's that yin-yang. If you can get that balance, even if it's masculine and feminine or feminine, if you can get a balance where you both feel comfortable in your own skin, it can work. It usually works better and more synergistic when there's a feminine and masculine role in the relationship. So anyway, Bill, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, it's a long road, I understand, and you're doing great. You said, change I can. Yes, I agree. You can, and you've already learned that changing your partners is impossible. It seems like a worthy effort. If they change, then we'll be fine. I tried to change every girl that was ever in my life, and that always worked out terribly. But this time, the person I'm with now, I am just letting her be whatever she needs to be, and I support that. And I think it's working out a lot better. So thanks for writing, Bill. I appreciate you. On to our next segment coming up. Well, not only do I host this international online radio show, but I also do one-on-one coaching. If you simply can't get enough of what I talk about here, or maybe you need to tackle specific issues in your life, consider coaching with me. I've worked with many people with all kinds of careers, backgrounds, and challenges, and I'm here to help you figure things out. If you feel stuck, like you can't get past some emotional barrier, or have this underlying fear or anxiety all the time, or just can't seem to find that happiness that you know is out there somewhere, we'll work together and figure stuff out. Now, my disclaimer is that I'm no replacement for therapy. I just know what I know. Listen to these episodes. If you like what I talk about and think that I can help you, send me a note and we'll connect. Sometimes all it takes is a different perspective to transform years of waiting for a change into a few minutes of momentum to steer your ship in a more fulfilling direction. I want to empower you to create the life you want. Go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Coach with Paul, or at the very least, get one of the worksheets on stopping self-sabotage or anxiety, or the new one on eliminating emotional triggers. Those are only a few dollars each and are more accessible for you if the cash is tight. Of course, if you're completely strapped for money, well, I have a backlog of about 2 years worth of free shows. So hopefully I've got everyone covered. I look forward to talking with you soon. All right, this next segment is called What's in the Box. And what's in the box today is people who are emotionally detached. Recently, I learned a powerful lesson, and I mean powerful. It was so powerful, I had to take my own advice on self-forgiveness and apologizing to people that are no longer in my life. The lesson I learned was, what happens to your loved ones when you turn off your emotions with them? In other words, when they want to connect with you and you can't or won't or don't know how to connect back, what happens? Emotional detachment is something I learned to do many years ago as a protection measure to avoid emotional pain. I've run into many people that do the same thing for the same reasons. We can, quote, detach from our emotions, causing us to feel less pain or at least feel numb so that we can avoid feeling worse. It's like choosing to stand next to the fire or in the fire. You'll either get hot or you'll burn. So I understand why many people choose to get hot instead. You've probably detached from your emotions at one point or another in your life just to avoid having to experience some sort of pain. Now that pain comes in many forms. An adult survivor of child abuse could have learned to detach from their emotions so that they could survive the abuse, at least emotionally. Because sometimes the abuse is so difficult to tolerate, the child has to disconnect from feeling so that they don't feel the pain. Now, if it wasn't abuse, it was something else that the child learned to do to tolerate the situation to survive. Survival doesn't always mean that you're fighting for your life, but to children, it can mean that very thing, even if what's happening isn't life-threatening. Children perceive the world very differently from adults. They don't know the consequences of their actions, and they're learning things for the very first time. Adults know that, like, sticking a paperclip in an electrical outlet will hurt or even kill us. But children see an outlet as an opportunity to test their puzzle-solving skills. When I was like 4 or 5, I remember a poster hanging on our family's bathroom door. For some reason, I thought it'd be cool to burn the edge of the poster with a lighter, just like those Old West posters that I've seen on TV. I remember lighting the bottom of the poster on fire, watching the flames spread pretty quickly, not knowing how to put it out, and then darting out of the bathroom, shutting the door behind me, hoping that no one noticed the blaze about to commence. This was my first experience lighting something on fire. I had no idea that playing with fire was dangerous. I just wanted to see if I could add some cool-looking burnt edges on the poster. Well, I walked away from the bathroom thinking that I was home free. No consequences from that close call. Fortunately, my mom smelled the smoke, ran to the bathroom, opened the door, and somehow put the fire out. I don't remember what happened after she opened the door, but I do know that the fire was put out because the house didn't burn down. Perhaps lighting that poster up in a place with lots of access to water was the best place to do something like that. But this is what kids do. We all did things that we didn't understand and didn't realize the consequences for. So when it comes to children looking at the world completely differently than us and believing that the adult that gives us a dirty look is a threat to our very survival, no wonder we develop dysfunctional tendencies at this age. We don't know what's going to happen after they give us that dirty look, so we create beliefs and behaviors that protect us from whatever might happen. Now, one of those behaviors could be emotional detachment. This is the ability to block out feeling good, because when you start to feel good, you believe that pain will accompany that good feeling. So you don't let yourself feel too good. Otherwise, you'll feel bad. In other words, it's hard to feel good when you associate it with feeling bad. When you learn to do this for the first time, usually as a child, you realize how much it protects you from emotional pain. What you typically fail to realize, however, is how much more pain it actually brings into your life, and especially into the lives of others. Detaching from your emotions represses the outward expression of internal thoughts and feelings. So you're really not detaching from your emotions, you're actually repressing them. This compounds the bad feelings inside of you, giving you a consistent undercurrent of bad feelings. Many of us can cover that undercurrent with happy times and positive thinking, but it's usually always there in the background as a protective measure. Wouldn't want to experience what it's like to feel good because I might feel bad. My lesson, and the reason I brought this up today, is that I recently experienced what it was like to be married to me. Let me explain. When I was married, I was always emotionally triggered. There were things that my wife did that triggered these negative emotions. Outside, I was kind, generous with my time and energy, and overall a, quote, nice guy. But inside, I had that undercurrent of anger and sadness and fear. When my wife reached for junk food, a challenge that she was dealing with at the time, I detached from her emotionally. I spent 8 years with a person that, for the most part, I was emotionally detached from. And just recently, I realized this. And this brought up some pretty heavy stuff for me. Most of all, it brought up how bad I felt for doing that to her. When you detach from your emotions to protect yourself, and you're in a relationship, you not only prevent yourself from being happy, but you also leave your partner in a state of limbo. My wife would approach me and say, I can handle when you talk to me and share what's going on with you inside, but I can't handle when you show no emotions whatsoever. I feel left out, like you don't love me. Now, at the time, I didn't see this as a big problem. Sure, I'll get triggered, I'll detach, something I didn't know I was even doing, and then after a few hours, or sometimes even days, I'll return and be a husband again. Unfortunately, between my triggered state and my emotional detachment, I didn't realize that I was completely shutting out my wife and causing her to believe that she was unlovable. That is one of the worst feelings in the world, believing that you're unlovable. And I did this to her for almost 8 years. I would attempt to show love in the ways that I could, but for the most part, because I had triggers to deal with inside of me, I really couldn't be as close to her as she wanted, or even as close as I wanted. And this is what I want to leave you with today. There are people in your life that love you. And if you find that you're having trouble connecting with your emotions due to some emotional trigger or childhood fear, know that this is affecting your relationship. And unless you have a very unique relationship, you could be driving a wedge between you and those who want to be close to you but can't. It took me several failed relationships, a divorce, and several years of introspection, all to figure out that when I detach from my emotions, I am actually harming those that I love. This doesn't mean that I'm to blame. It just means that I now know that I have healing to do. If you detach, you may have some healing to do. Detachment is a signal that you don't feel safe enough to be close to someone. Yes, there are people that are unsafe to be with, and that you'll need to assess as you go through life. But most people want to connect with you, but may not be able to if you shut down. We connect through emotional attraction. Quote, attraction in the sense that, like magnets, we're attracted to others through our emotions. Even physical, sexual attraction gives you feelings inside. And those feelings equate to emotions. But when you detach from your emotions, you may also find that you detach from physical feelings too. This is where impotence, in every sense of the word, can begin and cause much unhappiness in your life. Now, if you're not consistently triggered by your partner or others, you're probably fine and have nothing to worry about. But if you ever give the silent treatment for hours or even days on end, or even longer, or you find that you cannot connect fully, feeling trusting and safe with those closest to you, you may have gotten into the habit of emotional detachment. If you ever feel safer not feeling loving towards someone, then you know you are emotionally detached, at least temporarily. And you'll also find out that this one thing can blossom into many problems in your relationship. Not connecting emotionally with other people keeps you distanced from them. And being distanced causes others to feel less loved. And they may feel the need to find that love and support and connection somewhere else. This may or may not mean infidelity, but it can mean other people distancing themselves from you too, and eventually maybe getting out of the relationship altogether. After all, it's not fun loving someone that doesn't reciprocate. But it can be hard to reciprocate when you have challenges that you're still trying to heal and grow from. If you can't connect with your own emotions, this definitely needs to be addressed. Usually there's a lot of hurt in those who can't connect emotionally. And many times it's due to an emotional trigger happening inside. Now, by the time this episode airs, I'm hoping, I should have the emotional trigger workbook ready on my website at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. Now, this workbook is created to help you deal with, process, diminish, and maybe even completely release the emotional triggers in you. Regardless of that worksheet, however, listen to the episode on emotional triggers to help you get through what may be going on in your life now. The website is theoverwhelmedbrain.com/triggers. Don't let triggers or other emotional blocks keep you from enjoying a wonderful, satisfying relationship. If you feel emotionally detached more times than not, start the process of healing today. The first step is knowing that you detach or can't connect to your emotions will help you understand that this could be a challenge that needs addressing in your life. So knowing it will keep it in your mind. Knowing it will help you remember that while you're emotionally disconnected or detached, other people that want to connect with you will feel that disconnect and may even take it personally. That doesn't mean you're responsible for how they feel or react, but staying aware that this could and does happen will help you understand why people may distance themselves from you. So the very thing that you're trying to avoid will be the very thing that happens. You're trying to avoid getting too close to someone because you might get hurt. But not feeling emotionally connected to you, the other person then leaves you, causing you to get hurt. It's a lose-lose situation. The second step is self-forgiveness. I've talked about this in a previous episode, but here's a brief walkthrough in case you haven't heard it yet. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and relax. And remember a time in your past where you had some challenges, whether in childhood or later on. Whatever time in your past where you learned how to emotionally disconnect in order to protect yourself, just go to that time and place. And when you're there, imagine the you that you are now visiting the you that you were in the past. And then forgive yourself for not having the resources that you needed to handle the situation differently. Or, if you aren't a fan of that wording, forgive yourself for not making different decisions at the time. We've all made decisions that we wish we could have made differently, and sometimes we carry that regret with us throughout the years. So in your mind, as the person you are now, visiting the person you were then, forgive that younger you for those decisions that you made. Self-forgiveness works especially well if you can remember times in your past where someone else did you wrong. We're told to forgive those people, but I'm not particularly a fan of that, especially when those people were atrocious. But self-forgiveness, where you forgive yourself for not knowing better or for making decisions that didn't serve you, that is the path to healing. Just do this in your mind's eye as if you were really there visiting this past event, and then talk to yourself. Tell yourself, it's okay. It's not your fault. We didn't know any better, and we did the best we could. And now that we know better, we'll make different choices next time. And say whatever else you'd like to say to them. Or even just be there for them, letting them know that someone is there supporting them, even if there's nothing you can do to avoid the situation. This can be a powerful process, and it's exactly what I had to do just a few days ago to help me get through my own realization that I was so emotionally detached in my marriage. I had the huge realization that here I was married to a woman who wanted to be connected and loved by her husband for the rest of our lives, yet I was never there emotionally because I was always triggered. This deteriorated our relationship and eventually led to our divorce. After the divorce, I was like, what the hell just happened? I thought marriage was supposed to last forever. I did a lot of blaming and pointing the finger at her until I decided to take responsibility for my role in the downfall of our relationship. And even today, things still pop up for me and I go, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. No wonder she was getting depressed. Self-forgiveness helped me get beyond the self-blame and not having the conscious awareness at the time to understand what I was doing to her and the relationship. So I recommend that as your second step to healing from emotional detachment. Now, the third and the final step I'll talk about in this episode is to make a mental list of everything that you don't trust about the people in your life. This is kind of a strange step, but if there's something you don't trust about someone else, you won't feel safe with them. And once you know what's on your list, ask yourself if you can be okay with the other person doing that behavior that you don't trust, or if it will be too much to handle, causing you to shut down. If people in your life are doing things that cause you to shut down, you really only have 4 options. And I talk about this more in the Emotional Triggers workbook. Those options are: 1, accept what they do and stay in the situation. 2, reject what they do and stay in the situation. 3, accept what they do and leave the situation. And 4, reject what they do and leave the situation. Do you want to guess what most people do? Most people reject what the other person does, but stay in the situation anyway. This causes you to feel conflict and negativity the entire time you stay with them. It's a surefire way to continue feeling bad. The idea, however, is to get to a place of acceptance and either staying or leaving, or at the very least, reject it and leave. Now, there are some things that people do that I will vehemently reject, and I won't stick around or be near those people. But if there's behavior that people in your life are doing that you can't accept, and you choose to stay in that relationship or situation, then you will cause yourself much strife. They aren't the ones to blame for your strife necessarily, because you're the one sticking around, keeping their behavior in your life. If I was married today and my wife did things that I couldn't accept, and I saw that she could not or would not change, I would either choose to accept things the way they are, as if they would never ever change no matter how long I waited, or I would leave, knowing that I'd rather be alone and untriggered than with her and emotionally detached. Of course, the ideal situation is to heal from what caused the trigger in the first place. So definitely work on that overall. But during that time, how long will someone wait for you while they get no love from you? Leaving is a hard place for many people to get to because we want to keep people in our life even though we feel bad or detached when we're with them. But it's too hard living day after day in trigger mode. And I highly recommend that you either accept and stay, just knowing that this will be the way it is no matter what, or leave, whether you accept their behavior or not. I know sometimes you feel stuck and you can't leave, but you can start making plans, right? I mean, if you really want to leave, but know you just can't yet, you can start exploring your options. Now, I don't promote just leaving. I promote healing. Usually when you heal, other people that are detrimental to your well-being seem to disappear. It's funny how that works. When someone no longer bothers you, they serve no more function, and then they simply vanish. Or they change their ways because their role as your trigger is no longer necessary. Or if that person never changes or never leaves, you will be in a more empowering place to make the changes that you need to make. But the healing usually has to come first. Otherwise, you'll attract the same problem in the next relationship. Now, that's a pretty deep subject that we'll get into some other time. So just remember this. You don't have to accept what bothers you. But when you do, you become empowered to make the right decisions for you. The more accepting you become of other people's behaviors, the more you empower them to make the changes they want to make. And sometimes they don't want to make those changes, and you have to move on. And sometimes you can't accept their behavior, especially if it's dangerous to you or others. And when that happens, you need to make the hard choices that, again, empower you. It's all about getting your power back and staying attached to your emotions so that you can experience the full breadth of what it's like to be human. Yes, being human has its challenges, but the rewards of being attached to your emotions and letting the love from others into your life is so much greater. And there are those that love you, even if you think there aren't. And if you don't believe me, or you don't get that love from your family and friends, go to any church, spiritual center, or support group and report back to me that you didn't experience love or support. It's out there. Sometimes you just have to show up to receive it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll share some final words in a moment. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. On December 1st, 2015, The Overwhelmed Brain Inner Circle will open its doors. Now, I'm limiting the number of members to 25, so if you want to be on the waiting list, sign up now before it fills up. If you're interested in joining a group where we have a couple of group calls a month, not only with me, but with other coaches with their own specialties too, and get all the worksheets and digital download books that I've put out now and as time goes on, visit theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on TOB Inner Circle to get on the list. You could become a TOB luminary and be a part of this special private group. So let me know if you want in or if you have any more questions. Click on TOB Inner Circle on the website today. I want to thank everyone who has purchased a book or a worksheet or use the Amazon link to shop as you normally would, which gives us pennies for every dollar you spend. Your contributions and shopping habits are making a difference, so thank you. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. If you want to help spread the word of the show, log into iTunes and leave your review. This will help it rank higher and allow others who may need what we share here to find it. So thank you for those of you leaving your review there. And I know some of you post articles and tweet, and do other things that mention the overwhelmed brain? Well, when you do this, let me know. I'd love to see your mention of this show. I also want to thank Asha, the person that never fears when anything comes her way because she uses LegalShield. If you're in the US or Canada and want to know more about this, what she calls legal insurance, go to getoutofthemess.com. This takes you to her LegalShield page where you can talk directly with her and no one else. She's not salesy and she won't try to sell you on it. She just loves the service and wants to help you make empowering decisions for your life, whether that leads you to buying or not. So if you have any questions about LegalShield, Asha can be reached at 678-355-8777 or at the website getoutofthemess.com. So this weekend, I'm going out of town. I highly recommend this to anyone in a relationship, even if you get along phenomenally. Being away from your loved ones for any period of time accomplishes several things. 1, it helps you and them to reconnect with yourselves. What are your thoughts without them being in the next room? What's on your mind if it's not them coming home in a few hours? It's good to take time off and reflect on your life and decisions and emotions and whatever else you've got going on. And number 2, it reminds you why those people are in your life in the first place. Some people are family and have always been there, but others aren't. Why are those people in your life? How is your relationship with them? Can it be improved? Can you do anything personally to improve it? These are questions that, when we're in the thick of everything, we usually don't consider because we're in the thick of everything. But being apart from loved ones gives us time to evaluate and assess how well or not our relationship is going. It's so much harder to do this when you're together. Being apart for a work day isn't the same as being apart for a whole day or two out of town or at a friend's house. Taking time apart from those who have the most influence in your life, positive or negative, is a healthy way to get to know yourself again. Many times we come back together with more insight to why we do the things we do, which is good to know since sometimes the things we do aren't the most empowering for anyone involved. And finally, number 3, being apart reveals any unconscious thoughts that may have been going on inside of you. Those thoughts can be how much you really enjoy spending time with your loved one, or how much you don't enjoy it as much as you thought you did. Either way, being alone lets you look into the mirror of your life to find out what's being reflected in your world. In other words, you learn more about you, your desires, your dreams, your fears, and everything else. Being apart is a meditation that uncovers the meaning behind how you're living your life today. I went on a 2-day trip a few years ago to my hometown. I don't know anyone there anymore. I just wanted to be there and experience it to connect with myself. I didn't even tell my family that I was going to be there. I just went to experience me. It was an extremely memorable 2 days. I want you to experience you. If you can take a day or two and just be away from anyone that has any influence over you, where you can make decisions without those people being a part of those decisions, you'll discover some thoughts in your head that you may not have known were there. That's when true insights come to mind. And with that, open that mind and step into your power and be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure, and above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing. Okay, wow. An hour and 15 minutes and we're still going. What am I doing? Why am I talking so much? Why are you still listening? It's the end of the show. Let's take a break and get back to life. Are you still there? Well, since you're still listening, here's a little fun. Maybe it's time to start pulling the weeds. You know what I mean by that, right? Pull the weeds while I answer the phone.